Instacart is on a mission to have you not leave the couch this basketball season. Because between the pre-game rituals and the post-game interviews, it can be difficult to find time for everything else. So let Instacart take care of your game day snacks or weekly restocks and get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes. Because we hear it's bad luck to be hungry on game day. So download the Instacart app today and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Service fees apply for 3 orders in 14 days, excludes restaurants.
At Capella University, you can learn at your own pace with our FlexPath learning format. Take 1 or 2 courses at a time and complete as many as you can in a 12-week billing session. With FlexPath, you can finish the bachelor's degree you started in 19 months and under $19,000. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu. Fastest 25% of students. Cost varies by PACE, transfer credits, and other factors. Fees apply.
And welcome again to the Explaining History podcast. And for the third day running, we're returning to look at a different aspect of the very dangerous situation in the Middle East, the evolving war between Israel and Iran. So the thing that I think is important to grasp, and this has been something that gets very, very little coverage, is the complicity of other Arab regimes. Now, if we rewind all the way back to 1948, 1956, 1967, 1973, there are Arab-Israeli wars. Okay, we know this. We know that the Middle East is this battleground until the kind of the 1970s and the kind of historic rapprochement between Egypt and Israel. Okay, and most of the way that we think about the Middle East is shaped by this period, 1948 to 1973. But the idea there's this kind of idea that is popular in Western thinking, and it's largely illusory. That the wars were fought by Arab regimes to liberate the Palestinians. That, in most instances, was an afterthought. And B, that the Arab-Israeli wars was somehow part of a kind of a union between the Palestinian Liberation Organization and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine on one hand, and the Arab states. I'll say this now, and this is, I think, really worth bearing in mind, that the people like Yasser Arafat, the leader of the PLO, was uniformly hated by Arab regimes. The likes of Sadat and later on his successors in Egypt, the Assad family, the Hussein family, the Hashemites of Jordan, despised the revolutionary movements to liberate the Palestinian people. And the Palestinian people themselves they were often a tool that Arab regimes used in order to extract some sort of moral leverage. Not that they ever succeeded against Israel, but for the most part, there's huge indifference towards their well-being, and we can see this now because the question, and I posed this the other day, the question as to how Israeli aircraft crossed to Iran is now answered. Israeli aircraft were able to refuel in Syrian airspace. They were able to use Gulf state air bases. Very, very brave of Qatar to allow that, being the other side of the Persian Gulf from Iran. But there is, I guess, the assumption that the US fleet will show up pretty soon. Now, here's where things get, I think, extremely dangerous. You have two US aircraft carriers, the Nimitz, and I forget which other one is coming, but there are two US aircraft carriers making their way for the Persian Gulf. What they do when they get there is a really, really vexed affair. Do they launch carrier strikes against Iranian targets? Um, the the threat, I mean, the obvious response by Iran is to shut down the Straits of Hormuz, to cut off the Persian Gulf completely, and to cut off a huge flow of oil to the rest of the world. If they do this, it will create an economic shock equivalent to, perhaps even more serious than, those that shook the economies of the Western world in the 1970s. The thing about Iran that is again misunderstood in many Western countries, it's equated to Iraq in its military capabilities. This is a real, real misunderstanding. It is a significantly larger country than Iraq. It is has a larger population, significantly wealthier than Iraq, even though there have been sanctions, and extremely well armed, particularly with anti-ship missiles, and the Persian Gulf, I believe, by Iran can be made a killing ground for large and quite old, quite venerable ships, such as US aircraft carriers. So I doubt the Iranians would be foolish enough to give Trump a casus belli, one that he no doubt would really, really want. However, there are all sorts of things that can happen under the fog of war, and it would not be the first time that false flag operations, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, for example, or more recently the Nord Stream pipeline, have been employed. So I do hope that when these two carriers reach the Persian Gulf, that calm heads prevail, on all sides. There is a real potential for a real kind of escalation point, and carriers now are extremely vulnerable. Missile technology, anti-ship missile technology, has come on apace in the last decade or so, and it's been kind of democratized as well. Um, the states that didn't have that sort of power previously now do. So, coming back to the original point, the role of Arab states in the facilitation of Israel's crimes. I mean, it's largely born of indifference, and the idea that there are no kind of real upsides to getting too worried about the Palestinians. There's a very important clue, and often when sort of Trump kind of says the quiet part out loud, we often write it off as kind of ridiculous and
Online education is convenient, but sometimes it can be lonely. Sometimes the extra help you need can only come from someone else. At American Public University, they make online education personalized, affordable, and memorable. With 24/7 mental health support available in multiple languages, access to career coaches who are industry professionals, and lifelong career services, you'll never feel alone on your path to success. APU, digital by nature, human by design. Learn more at apu.apus.edu.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
laughable. But it's always worth watching because he always gives something away. He's a kind of the security state's worst nightmare because he litters the world with little clues about what he's thinking and what he's intending. Now, if you cast your mind back a couple of months, and it's very difficult to keep track of all the things that happen because Trump's kind of strategy is to throw out such a lot of kind of constant interference and noise and mess that we just become too confused. But when he had this kind of ludicrous plan of removing all the Palestinians from Gaza and sending in the bulldozers to build hotels and golf courses and turning it into some horrible deranged version of Las Vegas. He was looking to the Gulf states to finance that. Now, why would he do that? Why would he be so certain that they would do that? And the answer is that Gulf states already have extensive business interests in Israel. It's a fab place for them to invest. And there is a kind of a very relaxed relationship between the Gulf states and Israel. And Trump wasn't playing in hypotheticals. He looked at the situation and thought, well, there's a bit of land, but kick the people off it. And trust me, there will be people that will want to pour money into, as he said, his idea was rebuilding it as if it was some kind of beneficial act. But this is really the kind of version of sort of Naomi Klein's shock doctrine, disaster capitalism, stroke kind of English countryside clearances and enclosures of the 17th century. This is chuck the people off the land, find a better use for the land that can reward capital adequately. So the guy to watch here, and he was the guy to follow like a hawk under kind of Trump version 1, but even more so now, is Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, who has deep connections to now the Saudi royalty. He's sent as Trump's kind of wandering envoy in the Middle East. But what he really is a sort of like a financial conduit, a creator of financial vehicles between Trump personally and the rulers of the Gulf states and Israel. And of course, because all three countries, America, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the Gulf states, are all a kind of either autocracies or on the road to autocracy, and that there is a huge amount of kind of sort of theft, fraud, and corruption. Um, there are wonderful opportunities for key individuals to enrich themselves. So uh, the complicity of the Arab states follows flows of money. The uh, funds that Kushner set up, Affinity and Phoenix, are deeply intertwined with the Israeli arms industry, and of course the removal of Palestinians from the West Bank, where the majority of the illegal settlements are established. That obviously takes money, takes investment, and you need to have sufficient amounts of capital to make that happen. So there are all sorts of kind of deep connections there, and I think it's really important now to look objectively at the way in which the Arab states do now and have kind of always functioned. They've often liked to talk about Palestine.
Online education is convenient, but sometimes it can be lonely. Sometimes the extra help you need can only come from someone else. At American Public University, they make online education personalized, affordable, and memorable. With 24/7 mental health support available in multiple languages, access to career coaches who are industry professionals, and lifelong career services, you'll never feel alone on your path to success. APU, digital by nature, human by design. Learn more at apu.apus.edu.
Now at Verizon, we're locking in low prices for 3 years guaranteed on my plan. And you can get a single line for just $45 a month when you switch and bring your phone. That's our best price ever on unlimited welcome with autopay plus taxes and fees, guaranteed for 3 years. Because at Verizon, we got you. Visit your local DC Verizon store today. $20 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G and 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Price guarantee applies to then current base monthly rate. Additional terms and conditions apply.
But actually, actions on the ground from their leaders have been lukewarm at best and often complicit with Israel. I mean, there are kind of reasons for this. The Arab-Israeli wars solidified one fact on the ground, particularly after 1967, was that Israel was not going anywhere, could not be beaten, and had the backing of American firepower, and that America acted as a de facto colonizer in the Middle East and would back up Israel to the hilt in ways that no other client state of the United States of America could ever hope to be supported. There are certain states, like say for example Taiwan, that were in the past given unconditional guarantees, but that's because Taiwan, Hong Kong, the Philippines, and Japan and South Korea created a kind of a cordon sanitaire around China. That cordon sanitaire now is something that the America I don't think will commit to anymore. I think all the signals are that when China decides it wants Taiwan back, it will be able to take what it wants. Hopefully, without the degree of bloodshed that we see in Ukraine, but I think that there will be the Taiwanese will obviously fight to defend themselves, but there will be no hope of America coming to rescue them. I don't think, and I think that the problem here is that the security guarantees, the one country in the world that can still count on these sorts of security guarantees is Israel. And again, we talked about this the other day. I think that those commitments that were, firstly, they were in many ways a kind of Cold War security commitments. They were security commitments based on almost like an old British colonial version of divide and rule. Keep a Jewish state in the Middle East, fighting the Arabs, and then they'll fight amongst themselves, and the oil there will be kind of easy for the taking, that sort of thing. I mean, there's an element of that, but it now represents something more like a secular faith in right wing Republican America, even for those kind of um, American evangelicals. If you kind of leave them aside from the American evangelicals that believe in all this kind of Armageddon sort of stuff, I don't believe that they're as influential as this idea that Israel, to American Republicans and Democrats too, but people on the political right in America, Israel represents some sort of dividing line between a civilization and a barbarism. And there are lots of, post 9/11, in the, not that the 9/11 had anything to do with the Palestinians at all, but post 9/11, these feelings have intensified, and that there is a kind of a belief that some sort of great Manichaean ideological war, and actually practical hot war, has to be fought there in order for the defense of what it is we think of as being civilization. Um, and it's a sort of kind of madness that I think you can understand when you consider the decline overall of the American empire. And when you consider spiraling, declining empires in the past, they have been gripped by various insanities of their own. So Arab rulers looked at the permanence of Israel. They looked at its when Israel acquired nuclear arms, again probably in the late 1960s, early 1970s, and that became really common knowledge throughout the Middle East. The Arab rulers understood very quickly that you are going to have to find ways to accommodate Israel and even benefit from Israel. Palestinian refugee camps in Lebanon, in Jordan, quickly become a proper nuisance for the domestic rulers of those countries. And what happens with those camps and the way in which the refugees were treated is kind of a story for another time. But the Palestinians very quickly represent to the governments of these relatively new countries, places like Jordan, for example, which had existed since the 1920s, they represent essentially a headache, something that you kind of have to do something with. So it makes sense in a way that the regimes in the Middle East, which is still, America's influence is still quite profound throughout the capitals of the Middle East. That these regimes will do will make their deals with a kind of a more ferocious neighbor. They have perhaps more to fear from Israel than they do from Iran. Bear in mind, in the past year, Israel has bombed Gaza, has bombed Yemen, it has bombed Beirut, Lebanon, and it has bombed Syria. So it is, and it has done this with impunity. It has done this without the kind of the restraint or any form of restraint from the White House, both from Trump and from Biden before him. So I can entirely see why Arab rulers will hedge their bets on the side of Israel rather than on the side of Iran. Iran, who has, for its own reasons, again, perhaps for the subject of another podcast, its own reasons, they have been extremely wary of. The historical rapprochement, the Abraham Protocols, that the governments of Israel and Saudi Arabia, particularly, were being kind of goaded towards by America, would have been designed to create an Arab-Israeli kind of compact and understanding, at least a kind of a sort of like a nominal peace between them, which was designed by America to be a cordon against Iran. So America is there to really kind of try to coordinate an anti-Iranian policy in the Middle East. And so there was very little chance of the states of the Middle East doing anything to be beneficial to Iran at all. And there's probably, again, very little chance that if you are an American client state or an American ally, that you're going to get to sit this one out either. So the fact there is that Iran is, unless Iran is able to look to Russia and China, and I don't see either of them getting involved on Iran's part anytime soon, it probably suits Vladimir Putin to have the focus taken off Ukraine for a while. But I don't see him stepping in to fight or to arm Iran. And the Chinese have this policy, as they have always had, of kind of strategic non-involvement, strategic distance from the crisis. So as it stands, things don't look good for Iran, I don't think. But again, we may be looking at a totally different picture tomorrow. So there you go. Oh, by the way, I put my hands up. I said on the last podcast that we might be looking at a completely different picture. And within hours, the information came through that there were indeed American carriers making their way towards the Persian Gulf. So there you go. I am only as good as the information that is available to me, and I pretend no less. But anyway, I just tried to do a bit of analysis and place a bit of historical context on things. So I hope you found this interesting, and I'll catch you on the next Explaining History podcast. All the best. Bye-bye.
Online education is convenient, but sometimes it can be lonely. Sometimes the extra help you need can only come from someone else. At American Public University, they make online education personalized, affordable, and memorable. With 24/7 mental health support available in multiple languages, access to career coaches who are industry professionals, and lifelong career services, you'll never feel alone on your path to success. APU. Digital by nature, human by design. Learn more at apu.apus.edu.